What if I told you that some of the most powerful leadership lessons ever recorded weren't found in an MBA program or a Fortune 500 boardroom, but in a book that you probably already own? Today, we're diving into 6 timeless leadership principles straight from the Bible that will transform how you lead, whether you're managing a team, running a business, or just trying to be a better influence in your community and your family. And here's the thing, you don't have to be religious to benefit from these lessons. I mean, these are universal truths about human nature and leadership that have stood the test of time. So grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's explore what makes truly great leaders. My name is Sean, and on this channel, we explore practical wisdom to improve your business and your leadership. And now when most people think about leadership, they picture charisma, passion, or maybe the commanding presence you see in the movies. But here's what I've discovered. The most effective leaders throughout history share 6 specific qualities. They go much deeper than their outward persona. And the beautiful thing, these lessons come from some of the most tested leaders in human history. People who faced impossible odds, made difficult decisions, and left legacies that are still impacting the world today. So lesson 1 is lead with humility. So let's start with something that might surprise you. The first quality of great leadership is humility. Now you might be thinking, humility, isn't leadership supposed to be about being strong and confident? Well, yes and no. Here's the thing about humility. It's not about being weak or thinking less of yourself. It's about having a proper perspective of your role and putting others first. I mean, think about this. In the Bible, in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 6, it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now that's pretty serious stuff. I mean, if you want to succeed as a leader, you need divine favor, not divine opposition. But what does humble leadership actually look like in practice? Well, look at Jesus. And again, whether you're religious or not, you can't deny his impact as a leader. This is someone who could have demanded to be served, but instead he washed his disciples' feet. He spent time with people that society had rejected. He put others' needs before his own. And here's the practical takeaway. Humble leaders create environments where people feel valued and respected. And they're open to feedback. They admit when they're wrong, and they're constantly learning from others. Now, I've seen this in my own leadership journey. The moment I stopped trying to be the smartest person in the room and started genuinely listening to my team, everything changed. People felt heard. They contributed more ideas, and our results improved dramatically. So lesson 2 is lead with integrity. So the second lesson is about integrity, and this one isn't always easy. I mean, doing the right thing can be costly. It can also be unpopular, and sometimes it feels like you're swimming against the current while everyone else is going with the flow. But here's what I've learned. Your integrity is your foundation. I mean, without it, everything else crumbles. So let me tell you about Noah from Noah's Ark. Well, this guy started building a massive, massive boat in the middle of a field because God told him a flood was coming. Can you imagine what his friends and neighbors thought? They probably laughed at him, called him crazy, maybe even tried to stop him. But Noah knew something they didn't. Sometimes doing the right thing means standing alone, even when everyone else thinks you've lost your mind. You know, consider Abraham. Abraham, who at 75 years old, 75, left everything familiar and comfortable because he believed God was calling him to something greater. And then there's Esther, who literally risked her life to save her people. She could have stayed quiet, stayed safe, but she chose to do what was right instead of what was easy. Now here's the business application. In our careers, we face these moments too. Maybe it's speaking up about unethical practices, even if it might cost you a promotion. Maybe it's keeping your word even when it's financially costly. Maybe it's admitting a mistake instead of covering it up. I promise you this, your integrity is the most valuable asset you have. It might cost you in the short term, but it builds the kind of trust and respect that follows you for the rest of your life. Now, lesson 3 is simple but powerful. Leaders don't ask others to do what they won't do themselves. You know what kills leadership faster than almost anything? Hypocrisy. When leaders say one thing and they do another, trust evaporates instantly. Now, Joshua understood this. When he challenged the Israelites to choose who they would serve, he didn't just give them a motivational speech. He said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." He went first. The Apostle Paul was so confident in his example that he literally said, "Follow me as I follow Christ." Now that takes guts, but Paul could say that because he lived what he preached. He endured persecution, imprisonment, shipwrecks. He never asked his followers to face anything he hadn't faced himself. And of course, Jesus is the ultimate example here. He didn't just teach about love and sacrifice, he demonstrated it by giving his life for others. Now here's how this plays out in modern leadership. If you want your team to work hard, you work hard. If you want them to be honest, you be honest first. If you want them to care about customers, you show them what customer care looks like. I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career when I was asking my team to put in a lot of hours while I left early for important meetings. Well, guess what happened? My team's motivation plummeted and I lost their respect. It wasn't until I started staying late with them, rolling up my sleeves, and showing them that I was in it with them that things really turned around. So lesson 4 is lead with vision. Lesson 4, great leaders are visionaries. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Now that's not just ancient wisdom. That's a leadership fundamental that's as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. So without vision, teams lose direction. Without vision, people lose their motivation. And without vision, organizations drift about aimlessly. Now, Paul, the apostle, had an incredible vision. He wanted to present every believer perfect in Christ Jesus. He wanted to preach the gospel where it had never been preached before. Now, these were not small goals. They were world-changing visions that inspired countless people to join his mission. But here's the key. Your vision can't just be about you. It has to be bigger than your personal success or comfort. I mean, people don't get excited about making you rich or famous. They get excited about being part of something meaningful. I mean, ask yourself these questions. What has God called you to accomplish? What is your calling? I mean, most of us feel led to be or do something. And then what are your unique talents or strengths? And what do the people around you need most right now? And where do you want to be in 5 years? And how will that impact others? So when you can answer these questions clearly, you'll have a vision that not only guides your decisions, but inspires others to follow you. Now, lesson 5 is to lead with resilience. So lesson 5 is about resilience, the ability to keep going when everything seems to be falling apart. So let me talk about David, King David. God promised him he'd be king. But for years, the current king, Saul, was literally trying to kill him. David spent years running, hiding, living in caves. Most people would have given up. But David had something that kept him going. What was it? 2 things. His faith in God and his clear vision of what he was called to do. Because in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 27, David writes, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" David wasn't fearless just because he was naturally brave. He was fearless because he knew who was on his side. So building resilience as a leader requires three things. First, you need something bigger than yourself to rely on. For David, it was God. For you, it might be your faith, it might be your values, or your commitment to your team's success. The second, you need a clear vision that acts like a North Star when everything else is in chaos. When you know where you're going, you can navigate through the storms. And third, you need a strong support system. Even the strongest leaders need people they can lean on. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says, 2 are better than 1. If one falls, one will lift up his fellow. The reality is this: leadership will test you. You will face setbacks, criticism, and moments when you want to quit. But resilient leaders use these challenges as opportunities to grow stronger. So lesson 6, lead with courage. So finally, lesson 6, leaders must have courage. Courage to stand up for what's right, the courage to make difficult decisions, and the courage to take calculated risks. Without courage, you'll never accomplish anything great. So let me tell you about Daniel. He was living in the land of Babylon, where the king made a law saying that no one could pray to any god except for the king himself for 30 days. The penalty? Death by a lion's den. So Daniel had a choice: obey the king and disobey God, or obey God and face the consequences, the lion's den. Well, what did he do? Well, he kept praying. 3 times a day he prayed at his window where everyone could see him. Well, that's not reckless, that's courageous. Daniel knew exactly what he was risking, and he chose his principles over his safety. Or consider Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When commanded to bow down to a golden idol, they said, "Our God is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace. But even if he doesn't, we still won't bow down." And that's the kind of courage leadership requires. Now, you might not face literal lions or furnaces, but you will face moments that require courage. Will you have difficult conversations with underperforming team members? Will you stand up for what's right, even when it's unpopular? Will you take the risks necessary to achieve your vision? Remember, courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Courage means you do what's right, despite the fear. So there you have it, 6 timeless leadership lessons from the Bible. Lead with humility, lead with integrity, lead by example, lead with vision, lead with resilience, and lead with courage. And here's the thing I want you to remember. Becoming a great leader is not about perfecting all these qualities overnight. It's about growing in them over time, one situation at a time. You don't wake up one day suddenly courageous. You develop courage by facing situations that require courage. You don't become humble overnight. You practice humility in your daily interactions until it becomes part of who you are. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one of these 6 qualities and focus on it this week. Maybe it's having the courage to have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's leading by example in an area where you've been inconsistent. Maybe it's developing a clear vision for your team or organization. Whatever it is, take action, because the world needs more leaders who embody these timeless principles. Hey, did this video help you? Well, do me a favor and leave a comment. I truly believe these principles can transform not just individual leaders, but entire organizations and communities. So which of these 6 leadership qualities resonates most with you right now? And which one do you think you need to work on the most? Thanks for watching. Keep growing, keep leading, and remember, the best leaders are always learning.